Welcome to another episode of Foresight TV. Oh, Jada, I didn't prep here. I didn't put my intro banner, so you're going to have to do that in just a minute. But I am so excited to be talking to Traci Roberts today. We are on it's been a crazy week of the world in general. Traci has had some extra craziness being in Houston with power failures. We're going to talk about all of that. I don't think we're going to do the politics things, honestly, but we're going to talk about that. And so I can hardly wait to have this conversation. But first, this. Hey guys, Steve Moran here. Traci, welcome to Foresight TV. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. I've been more excited about it because watching the trials and tribulation that you walked through with such grace with your Houston communities. We'll start with a short story. I was at the conference in Southern California in either January or February, I forget which, and Jack Cumming, who was also there, came running over to me. And he said, "Oh man, I met this woman you have got to meet. She is your kind of person." And so we met and we've been talking, and I'm so glad to just learn more about what you're doing. Traci, let's actually start with who you are, your communities, and where you're located, and then we'll talk about power failures.
Sure. Well, we're Sodalis Senior Living. We're south of Austin, Texas, and San Marcos, Texas. We're actually a company that's been around since 1997, but for many years, we were kind of a very small local community. And then we partnered up with Ventas about 4 years ago. And so now we have 36 communities in 3 states. We're in Texas, Florida, and Georgia. Most of our communities are right here in Texas. We have about 26 in Texas right now. And we've got assisted living, memory cares, and independent living. So, yeah.
Terrific. And continuing to grow?
Oh, yeah. We're continuing to grow thoughtfully. We're trying to be very thoughtful in our growth plans and making sure that we keep our culture and everything intact while we do that. That's always a balancing act. But yeah, we definitely want to grow. I think right now we've got just over 1,200 employees. So we've grown quite a bit. In 4.5 years, we went from 7 tiny itty bitty little communities that were like 150 units to today we have around 3,600 units and 1,200 employees. So,
wow, yeah. That's huge growth. Let's start with we got to talk about you. I've been watching on LinkedIn and know that you have been struggling with massive power outages in the Houston area. Can you just maybe start with a story about kind of what happened and for people who don't know, and then like to have you sort of talk through the process.
Well, we had 7 communities that were impacted by this level 1 hurricane, that hit Houston. And we had power outages for all 7 communities. They do have backup generators. But we had 2 communities that it was very problematic that house over 200 residents, and they're 2 big ILs. And they were out of power for 9 to 11 days. And so, I did put the post on LinkedIn. I was really trying to get some help from CenterPoint, the electric company, just to bring to attention that you have seniors here. And we're supposed to be at the top of the list. And I don't feel that was the case. We've had over 50-some thousand people look at that post on LinkedIn. And I think one of the things that is most concerning for me that you get feedback on is, why aren't these communities why don't they have, totally powered on generators? And, as somebody who operates and lived in Florida for a long period of time, and I do have and have had communities that are fully powered by generators, I think what people need to understand is when you're fully powered by a generator, you will have full power for about 3 days after you load everything on there. But you still have to have fuel contracts for backup fuel and all of that. And that can be very problematic in a hurricane, getting the fuel to you, or even everybody needs it. And you're not allowed to keep backup fuel because it's a safety hazard, it's an environmental hazard. And if you're on natural gas, that's an environmental issue because of fossil fuels. So, actually, in Texas, even though they're partially operated by generators in our communities, they actually can have power, in your common areas and things like that. For we had it the whole time. The issue I had was getting residents into their rooms. They couldn't be in their rooms, and as you know, residents of that age, they want to be in their rooms and they want to sleep in their rooms, of course. So that's where I think frustration for me. That's where um, we needed things to be done differently. So whether you're in Florida on full power or in the state of Texas, I feel like the electric companies at day 4, you should be a priority. We should have the electric backup for assisted living, memory care, skilled nursing, independent living, um, or people that have disabilities. So they need to figure out a way for this Texas grid to prioritize those individuals. So
So
that's
were you ever able to sort of talk to anybody who's high up at the power company?
no, I did. Texas Assisted Living Association, they were calling every day on our behalf too. They helped me. The health department came by, they tried to help me. Our first responders tried to help, and we were calling every day. And we kind of got the runaround. It was, well, it'll be on tomorrow, it'll be on 3 days from now, it'll be on, and that just wasn't the case. And that also makes it very difficult to make a good, solid decision because you don't know whether you should evacuate people, which is very hard on people that are in their latter, 80s, 90s, or even 100, or should you go ahead and keep them there? And so everybody was able to stay in place except one community. We did evacuate one community, um, and it went to a sister community, and they were evacuated for 2 days, and then they were able to return home. And that was because the temperatures, they were 98 degrees. The heat index was like 106.
Yeah.
And I absolutely was not going to leave them, take any chances of people sneaking back to a room or not being in cool zones or whatever. So we did decide to evacuate that
And where
community.
did you evacuate? Did you go to use hotels, or were you able to find other communities?
So we
Or
have a sister community that was 11 miles away. So they were able to evacuate to a sister community who had power restored. And so that's where they went. Yeah.
so, do you have any lessons out of this for other operators who might, and I guess there are really two parts of it. Are there things that you will do in preparation for the next time, or do you feel like you're already set? And looking back, are there things you could have done better during the power outage?
I think the one thing I learned is if the Texas grid is this problematic and the electric companies are this disorganized, and I've had this in the past. I know you and I've spoken about that before. We've had that in, a little bit of snow, a thunderstorm, it'll go out for long periods of time. I mean, they've got an issue here. But I think what I've learned is if this is a level 1, if I have a level 2 or 3, I'm going to evacuate those communities, period. I'm absolutely not going to risk, even with a generator that is operating some of the community. I'm not going to risk it because until I see that they've got their act together and there's more of a strategic and a tactical plan on how they, restore power, I'm not going to trust the lives of my resident or staff to their decision making. Our teams, they worked those emergency plans. I mean, they did a really good job. They had food. Um, my residents will tell you that they were upset that I evacuated them, but I think I think they really need to be working with the senior living, organizations to develop strategies and how you come up with that. I would really encourage the electric companies to do a better job
Yeah.
at partnering with our Tala and those type of people to get feedback, and how can we work together to make our people safe? Because at the end of the day, it's not a blame game. It is absolutely how are we gonna take care of older people and disabled people in the state of Texas and ensure that these people are a priority.
Yeah.
And that's really all I care about, is how do we make that happen? So
So it sounds like your residents did a good job of hanging in there, and that you didn't have a lot of complaining. And how did the families react to all of this?
the families were great, and we have a lot of local families in the Houston area. So what happened is the first 4 or 5 days, the families couldn't come and get their loved ones because they didn't have any power. Now, for the families that did get power restored, most of them did, they would come and get their loved ones once that happened.
Yeah.
Again, that was after the 5-day mark. But
Yeah.
we had I think there were about 51 residents that we actually evacuated to the sister community. Normally there's 100. So
Yeah.
about half of them were picked up by families, and then half we had to evacuate to the sister community.
Yeah, it's so frustrating when, I mean, it's the public grid fails you and the leadership there fails you. And I'm actually sitting here as you're telling me this story. I've had, not on that scale, but sort of a personal scale, where I've had issues with companies, and I've been able to use LinkedIn very effectively. Some LinkedIn and some guilt to get some big corporations to do some amazing things. So I'm not going to do that on air. I don't want to. If everybody starts doing it, it won't work for me anymore. So that's a little
Right.
something. So next time we'll have to talk about that off air. And if somebody had a specific wanted to reach out to me, I'd be glad to talk about what I've done. But I've gotten huge companies to pay attention to issues that normally they wouldn't, using some LinkedIn tricks. So anyway, let's move on past the hurricane and disasters. I'd like to have you just talk a little bit about your work culture and how you approach senior living and how you think about creating the best life for both residents and for team members.
And this is the subject that I'm most passionate about, because this is
You.
when I were talking in LA about this. About, I don't know, what has it been now, 3 years ago when COVID started. And I was sitting around a lot of round tables with some really wonderful people and talking about strategies on how to get labor into the buildings, because that was a struggle. And people were giving out gift cards, but that didn't really work because we were kind of all doing the same thing. And I kind of had an epiphany, and I've been in this industry for 34 years, and starting from the bottom and working my way up, and also being a single mom, looking back at myself and what struggles I dealt with, and thinking about what do people really need. And my frontline staff, they've never really been interested in, paying for tuition or tuition reimbursement or even the gift cards. And I thought, I've got to dig a lot deeper onto what we're doing. We're always training people on customer service and how to take care of residents. And then, I started realizing that I'm asking somebody to love my resident, and I'm asking them, to not look at them as a task and look at them as a person. Then I realized, do we do that with our staff members?
Yes.
And the answer is no, we don't. And a lot of these people, when you get to talk to them, have not had maybe easy childhoods or an easy life as young adults. And some of them were in foster care or whatever, and they don't know. They don't understand what it feels like to be loved unconditionally without asking anything in return. And I thought, well, that's what I need to work on. Like, how do you love somebody and let them know you love them and you're going to help them and you don't expect anything in return? Because you have to start there. When you show somebody love, then you can teach someone how to love. And so it changed my thinking about how I wanted to run this company altogether. And so then it became, I don't know if people have college degrees. We promote from within. And so we will promote frontline staff into executive director positions. Well, that's a game changer for someone's life, because that's, $18 an hour to making six figures. And that's wonderful, because then instead of working 3 jobs, they get to work 1 job, and they can read to their children, and they can be available in their life, and it changes people. But also, it was, we buy backpacks for every employee, frontline staff member's child to go back to school, and we fill them with school supplies, because I'm also thinking about how education is important. But as a child who may be underprivileged, or a child of color, and you go to school and you don't have a backpack like everybody else has, from that very get go, your perception and feeling of school is going to start off it's not going to be very good. And so it's like, well, I can't change the entire world, but I can help our kids. And so we have about 800 little kids that we buy backpacks for, and we fill those suckers with school supplies so they can go back to school confident and feeling good. And their parent is the hero, because then the mom gets to bring the backpack to him as though she bought the backpack, she filled the backpack up. And that's what it's all about. We buy every little kid a Christmas present or a holiday present. They fill out their little wish list, and we go shop for the exact thing that they want. And again, the parent is the superhero. We do intergenerational programs during the summer, because who can afford daycare? And then trying to find daycare for just the summer months is almost impossible. And so we've got the best teachers ever in our communities. We have former teachers and attorneys and engineers and lawyers and CEOs. And so the residents are so gracious and welcoming these little kids into the community. They can help tutor. They do show and tell with each other. You've got show and tell from 1939 to show and tell today. And it really bridges the gap between younger people and older people, and develops the love and respect for one another. And the other thing that I'm huge on are hiring and promoting people of color, because for me, a healthy organization is an organization where you see everybody represented, not just a certain type of person. And I feel like that's why we've been successful, is because we have such good feedback from all groups of people, and you get all these different perspectives, that I don't have to try to problem solve for the whole world. I can ask my team, what do you think? Or how does this impact you? Or what do you think we should do? Or what would be best, for this community? And then they tell me what's best for them. And I think it's made a healthier, better organization. But it's all about love. It's very simple. You've got to love people more than you love yourself. And you've got to put people first and love their kids and families. And don't ask them, how long have you worked here? Don't make them sign a thing that they've got to work with you for 2 years. Because my whole theory is, I'm going to do what's right for my soul. Whatever that other human being does, that's on their soul. That is not my job in life to decide or judge. I'm going to give it. And that's all there is to it. Like, I'm going to give it, and that's how it works. And that's what we do. So no questions asked.
I love this so much. My wife just sent me this little story on Facebook like half an hour ago, and it's a story about this guy walking out of a grocery store, and a homeless guy comes up and says he's hungry and asks for some money. The guy peels off some bills and hands them to the homeless guy. And then following him out to the parking lot, another woman comes along and says, I don't know why you did that. Don't you know he's just going to go spend that money on drugs and alcohol? And the guy turned and he looked at her and he says, if he goes and spends that on drugs and alcohol, that's about his character. Me not giving money to this guy when he asks is about my character. And this is so much about you and caring. And every time I hear people talk about how terrible their staff is, it makes me want to yell at them, because mostly people are the same. And if you love people, it's amazing what they will do. And the last thing you said, I got to talk about for just a minute, is you went and asked people what we need to do to make things better. That is such a rare thing, and you get such great insights. So that's just absolutely amazing.
I don't know everything, and what I might need is not what they need. And, we had a joke during the hurricane with the staff that we went out and we gave all the staff members who were involved in the hurricane a $200 gift card for their local grocery stores. Because what people forget is all their food was ruined during the hurricane. They lost all their food. And so I was teasing them, but it goes back to this point. I said, well, we thought about buying the food and bringing it to you. But if I bought it, it would probably be like macaroni and cheese and Dr. Pepper. So I thought it would be better if you decided what you needed and you bought your own food. But it's kind of like that. It's like a lot of times people and organizations think they have the best idea and they have the answer. And their hearts are in the right place, but they go get stuff for people and it's not what they want or what they need. And it's like a lot of times if you just step back and you ask people, what do you need? How do you need? It also varies from community to community, state to state, culture to culture. Then you get the answer from people. And that's really what you have to, I think, change our leadership styles. You have to be very, very flexible dealing with the people, a variety of people and in tune. So.
Yeah. Well, and what I hear from you is that what you're doing is you've got this big, massive radar dish up saying, I'm just going to listen and figure out what they need rather than me perceiving, because I'm pretty sure that if you just asked me to go out and go grocery shopping and fill your pantry and fill your refrigerator, I'd bring you a bunch of stuff that you'd hate. Exactly. And I guarantee that if you were doing that for me, the same thing would be true. And the last thing is what you're saying is I really trust you, right? And so to me, mostly what I'm hearing from you that I think is so unusual is that you're saying you're trusting your people in all kinds of ways.
You should. You've got to be humble. I mean, I'm very big on the higher up you go, the less you are. And I think that as CEOs and COOs and owners of organizations, everything should be an inverted pyramid. You're at the very, very bottom. You are the least important person in your organization. A lot of people have a hard time hearing that, but it's actually, to me, like the biggest compliment, because your job is to hold up everybody else and to empower everybody else and listen to everybody else. And yeah, you sometimes have to make tough decisions, but if you have good people, it's easy to make tough decisions because you trust people. And I have to tell you, Steve, when those residents got off the bus yesterday in Houston, Texas, coming back to their community, I knew we had the most wonderful people because the residents were crying. They'd been away 2 days and hugging the staff and kissing the staff and, saying, I've missed you guys. You're my family. I love you, and the staff, when my COO and I got there, they didn't know that we were dropping in, by the way. They were in there working their hind end off, cleaning, setting the table, cooking, making sure every single thing in that community looked perfect. So when people came back in, our residents knew their home was in order. And these are the same people that their homes are not in order, that they have been staying with our residents for 11 days while their own homes are in chaos. It was the most beautiful, most moving thing I have seen in a very long time, but it gave me such restored hope and positivity for humanity, because in the worst times, you see the most incredibly beautiful moments. And it was a beautiful moment yesterday. It was empowering. It was humbling. And it was just a really beautiful thing to see. For sure.
That is just so cool. So I have to ask this question. I'm sure there are people who are watching this and listening to you tell the story of buying these backpacks and giving everybody $200 gift cards for a grocery store, and they're thinking, I wish I could do that, but it's so much money. How do you justify that? How do you make that happen?
Well, I think we've got good vendors who help support us. I'm partnered with a very good REIT who personally will help me. I've got our management team and our EDs will do GoFundMes, and they put in money to take care of the frontline staff. Like it is a team effort for sure. And, we've got a lot of people who are very supportive and help us, and they believe in the cause. They believe in us helping our frontline staff. And that's how we do it. It's stressful because it's like I get done with the backpacks, and then we're right in, to your holiday and Christmas season, and it's buying gifts, and so it's never. And we do, Valentine baskets and Halloween bags, and we do all this stuff for all the little people, Easter bags. So everybody's got everything. Every holiday's covered. So it's nonstop, but I think everybody loves it so much that, like I said, we've got really good partners in this industry, and Steve, there were people that we were not partnered with in this recent hurricane that donated to us, but also even volunteered their time and their help, and their vendors I don't even have that reached out, or people with other senior living communities. So it was really, really wonderful.
That is so, it is just so inspiring to me. And I suspect that the other thing, we haven't really talked about it, and I don't normally do this with guests, since I'm not going to put you on the spot on it, but when you treat people that way, it reflects on your residents, and those things all reflect on occupancy. And when you have high enough occupancy, you've got margins to be able to do these things. And so this is such a beautiful thing. So one of the questions I like to particularly ask my guests, I'm going to do a little bit of a shift here for a minute, for the last couple minutes we have, is there's a lot of talk about the baby boomer generation. That's me.
Yep.
And this idea that in order to be successful as we baby boomers continue to move rapidly into the age of consuming senior living, that we've got to do things very differently. Do you have any thoughts on baby boomers and
that the baby boomers have to do something differently, or we
communities have to do something different?
Yeah, I do think so. I think the difference between the greatest generation and the baby boomers, greatest generation were very much like, if their doctors told them to do something, they would do it. Or, they kind of would follow whatever they felt like the rule was. What I love about baby boomers is they don't follow any rules. I always laugh and say there's a little Woodstock like in every baby boomer, a little rebellious. But what I love about that is it's the mindset of, we may be getting old on the outside, but we're not old on the inside.
Yeah.
And don't be disrespectful. Don't dismiss us. And they want the sense of purpose. I think the most exciting thing about baby boomers and how we need to shift is, I think, especially in independent living, there's a whole way to take our residents where they can lead activities and they can do sales in communities, and, even working with people on discounts on rent and things like that, because they still want to participate in actually being a part of that community on a very different level than we've ever seen before. And who's going to tour a baby boomer better than a baby boomer who already lives there? And so right now, that's one component. The other thing is, I think baby boomers love and embrace technology. I think this is a group of people who they like it. They love to continue to take like those college courses and things like that. They want to continue to learn. They want to continue to go places. So I think this whole, hey, we want to play bingo, that all needs to go away, because that's not true. And people, they want to live, and they want to have new experiences and a sense of purpose. So I think that the industry has to change. We should have changed like 5 years ago. But you have to change to embrace that, because it's so much fun. And so we're doing that in independent living. And we've got people, our residents, who lead the activities. We have residents that are doing tours. We've got a group of people who are planning a cruise, and they're taking a cruise. It's like that, to me, that's where it's at, is continuing to have new experiences. So
I think that it's such a hardship for operators to make, that, we get used to doing for our residents, and to move from that to empowering residents to do themselves. One of the things I've been talking about for years, I actually haven't written about this in a long time, is that I've always felt like one of the ways we could help our occupancy and create more dynamic communities is to have paid jobs that somebody could live in a community, and there's so many things they could do. I mean, they
Yeah.
could be an activity director, they could be a front
Concierge.
desk person, a
All
concierge.
sorts. Yeah.
I mean, so many things they could do in independent living. I mean, that sounds crazy, right? But you could even, your bus driver could even be a resident potentially, right?
Why not? It helps their money if you can work out, and maybe they want that in lieu of a rent, or however you can work it legally per your state. You're actually helping them stay somewhere longer and helping their finances and everything. But not only that, they want to do it and they're good at it and they care about it and they have a sense of pride. And we've tested it out at a few communities, and it's being wildly successful. And I want to do that more. I think it's the way that we should be doing business. If they want to do it, let them do it. So
that's right. And these are all people who figured out how to make enough money to be able to pay for senior living. So they've got skills.
Yes.
And I think I love this so much, because I think so often I need a better word than this, but I don't know what it would be. But we end up looking down on our residents when we shouldn't.
You've got to talk to your residents just like you do your staff. Stop problem solving for them and start talking to them and saying, if they're bored or if they're depressed or if they're not engaging in your current activities, let them lead an activity. You've got technology out there that tells you what they love to do. Let them lead it.
Yeah.
But it's all about talking to people. Every problem can be solved if you ask questions. And you ask people, what do you want? What would make you happy? What is it that makes somebody depressed? And this group of individuals have also been very, very supportive in the backpack drives, in the intergenerational, in the Christmas. They want to be a part of taking care of our staff and their children. They want to do that. And so it's like, it makes your life much easier because you're not alone. It's a family, and families help each other. And they love each other and they problem solve for each other. And so you have to manage your companies just like that, just like you're a family. And you've got to keep everybody's best interest in mind and their happiness and all of those things. So I think it's super exciting to see that. So,
I agree, and I love using the term family. There's a thought leader or author, Adam Grant, who's put out sort of a fanboy of this, everything he writes. But the one thing that he talks a lot about is how you shouldn't compare companies to families, because they're not. And I think he's got that completely wrong. They're not parallel. Sometimes families are the companies are actually serve as more functional families for people who come out of very dysfunctional families. And so I think that family is a terrific metaphor, at least for what we do in senior living. So I love it.
Yeah, it is a family. And I disagree because I used to hear early in my career, wow, you've got to leave your personal problems at the door and we don't want them in here. I absolutely disagree with that. I think people are humans, and there are sometimes in life you're up and there's sometimes that you're down. And when you're down, when your family loves you, they carry you through it. And there are, we've had people that have had terminal illnesses. We've had people that have deaths in their family, people that have been homeless, people, all sorts of things. As a family, you take care of your own and you help them out. And when you love people like that, you don't have to worry about the care that is being given to your residents, because that goes and translates all the way through. And so I disagree with that. We have definitely, I'm trying to create a culture and making sure that people can be honest about when they have an issue and we help fix it. We want a transparent culture. We want to know when people are on hard times so we can help them. I don't want people to go through those things alone and have that worry and that stress and all of that eating away at somebody. That's not healthy and it's not necessary. So, yeah.
Traci, thank you. We're way past time, but that's okay. This has been a tremendous conversation. Thank you for joining us. I'm so glad your power is back on, and hold on for just a second, and we will be back next week with another great show.
Thank you.